Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Naked Truth About podcast. The first two episodes, we started with the guests because we wanted to have a conversation with someone from the Zillennial generation, someone who just entered the workforce. And today, I have a more deep conversation with my dear friend and co-host, Professor Dr. Beverley Wilson-Wunsch. Dear Beverley, welcome. I'm so much looking forward to our conversation and learn so much more about you and your career. I have tons of questions.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks so very much for having me. It is always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend. I am so much looking forward to talking with you about my own life story also too.
Yeah, and there is so much to cover because you did so many things, you lived in so many places. So, shall we just jump in?
Indeed, yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
And maybe we can start with a kind of a 20,000 foot view, on a kind of a high enough level so we can see kind of the big picture. Why did you do the things you do? Why hospitality? You were very straightforward. You chose at a certain time hospitality and you did so many things in that area.
That is indeed true. In fact, to ask a question about how I entered hospitality, it's a really very long story because, in fact, it was not something that was actually planned. I am from a place. As you know, I am originally from Jamaica. I was born in Jamaica. I grew up in Jamaica. And traditionally, careers in these areas would lead you to the very traditional professions to become a teacher, a nurse, a doctor, a lawyer, and then you would essentially be pursuing the important careers. But somehow I went to what is probably known as a secondary school in the educational systems these days. And so essentially, I was actually given the opportunity to go to a hotel to do a work field orientation. Once I did that work field orientation, in a hotel, that was the beginning of my career in hospitality. I went, I spent 3 months and loved it. And since then have been in hospitality. So yes, that's how it really started at a very humble age, as early as 15 or so years old.
And what keeps motivating you to stay so much in the field of hospitality or of being of service? And all the studies you did, I'm impressed. It's amazing. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that, Beverly.
Right.
Um,
Yes,
your
indeed.
resume of all the things you studied and what motivated you to do all those things.
Indeed, my if you wanted to say my curriculum vita in hospitality has been a really long one, really very long one. In fact, when I started hospitality, I then decided at a certain stage that I should continue on this track. And then my parents said, it does not come into question. You've got to become a teacher. And so after high school, I literally registered and went into the teacher training profession because being a teacher is a lot more, as I would actually say in Jamaica, it's a profession that is actually well accepted. And then I went into teacher training college. And one day I was actually asked to represent the college in a debate. So I got dressed up in my finest suit and I went to the debate. And basically, when I was actually leaving the campus to go to this debate, a friend of mine looked at me and said, "Guess what? You don't look like a teacher." And I said, "You look like a businesswoman," she said. And that was my cue. After that summer, I decided I am not going back to teachers college. And so after that, I literally spent the summer working again in a hotel just to check to see whether or not it's the right profession that I should be in. And so I continued on. I won a scholarship, went on to do study in hospitality management, and since then I have been there in the industry. I love hospitality. It is something that essentially motivates me all the time and inspires me all the time to keep giving back, to helping people, to look on the faces of my clients that necessarily come in and is excited to have an hospitality experience and to be taken care of and to be loved and given service without any strings attached, essentially, to be honest with you. And I
Mhm.
think that is what motivates me to continue on this journey. It's really very, very difficult, though, should say, to put a finger on exactly what's the one thing that necessarily motivates me to continue in
Mhm.
the hospitality industry. Today, I would rather say it's the students that I pass on what I know, my knowledge that I know to them so that they can become the best hospitality managers that they would
Mhm.
want to be. And so I feel
Mhm.
that the knowledge that I'm able to pass on and to give to my students is what continues to motivate me to be in this industry
Mhm.
so that they too can go out and deliver service.
But Beverly, when I see all the things your studies, all your Masters of Science, your PhDs, all you did so many things. What kept you on studying? I mean, I think one PhD is enough, but you want to do a second study and another study and another study. What kept you keep going on studying and studying and studying? What was the thing? Is it a kind of research? Is it also me search? What was it?
I think it's a lot of that. I think there's a lot of that there. Looking at my self is really one opportunity to basically say that when I think about the research that I do, I am actually researching my own practice. I am researching the opportunity to be able to learn how to do things better. You talk about my PhD, it's not something that I talk about very often. As a matter of fact, I'm one of those persons that
I know that's
rather
why I do it.
I'd rather not even mention the fact that I did do a PhD finally, but I would rather say that this was something that I knew from the very beginning that I would actually continue to study. Once I got a grip on my life, to be honest with you, I should go back one step and say when I was actually about the age of 10 or 11, I never ever wanted to study. There were three things I wanted to be. I wanted to become a good wife, a mother, and a good Christian. Three things. Never wanted to study. I think my parents are still shocked that I have a PhD because I was not on the track to necessarily go on to doing something like this. It's crazy. But now that I actually got to the point that I realized that I had the potential to study, when I got that scholarship from the Jamaican government to go abroad to study, I continued. And somehow learning felt sweet. Learning felt like I was given the doors were open to explore myself and to explore my practice. I basically went on from an undergraduate degree to a master's degree to a second master's degree and then to do a PhD. And my PhD necessarily gave me the opportunity to explore my own practice and how I do things and how I can actually do things better. And really, I would say it's more of an intrinsic thing to be able to get the word out there to see how I can do things better on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that connects us. We're both the mother of nothing and students of everything. We keep studying and studying and studying. I so much resonate with that. What are the things that are now very important to you, you want to give to your students? What are the things you want to teach them about life, because the workforce they're going to come in now? Are there special things you want them to know, you want to give to them, to give knowledge to them, to give life lessons to them?
That's a very interesting question. Recently, a student of mine who graduated, he necessarily did not comment on the knowledge, skills that he gained at the university. I mean, the everyday practice of the hospitality industry. But when he went on LinkedIn and he mentioned my name, he said, "You know what, Professor Dr. Wilson Wunsch, it is the stories that you told, your personal stories that you gave us." And I've always felt that there is so much to learn from life, how we do life, how things happen, the things that are going to come at you, the things that you would need to know in order to survive the everyday hits that you're actually going to get, the times when you are going to be hit by a problem that you can't resolve, the times when a guest is going to come into your hotel and make demands of you that you can't necessarily give them immediately a sort of an answer to that. You can't solve their problem,
Mhm.
to give them those life skills. And I think that is essentially what I'm always about, for them to look at ways in solving a problem, finding answers on the spot, to be able to think on their feet, to be able to problem solve, and to develop those cognitive skills that they actually need in everyday practice. As a matter of fact, I always say that
Mhm.
when you ask a typical hotel manager, for example, about what makes them successful, they would say it's their ability to smile. But I always tell my students that it is a lot more than smile. It's a lot more than a smile. It's really about being able to understand your practice, to be able to dig deep into the knowledge and skills, that the cognitive ability to be able to get to the bottom of the problem and solve the guest problem. And you need to know all of those also too. Obviously, personality
Mhm.
matters. Obviously, there is some correlation. In fact, the research that I did that looks at what are some of the important variables that impact expertise development in hospitality management. It really is about learning styles, about emotional intelligence, it's about personality. But I also feel that knowledge
Mhm.
skills are also important. The knowledge you gain, the cognitive skills, your ability to be able to problem solve is very, very important in
Mhm.
hospitality practice
Mhm.
today. So, indeed, I would rather say that it's important to get my students to realize that there is much more than being able to smile. It's really about the cognitive skills that you actually need to develop.
And I think it's both. You just mentioned also the personal skills, the interpersonal skills, life skills. That's also so of the utmost important, I think, in every branch. Do you think, Beverly, because you say your students resonate especially with the stories you tell them, that's one thing, because one of the reasons we want to do this podcast, we also want to talk about difficulties, to tell the truth about some of the roadblocks in our life.
That's
And I
right.
mean, when we look at both our CVs, they look very nice. We can make a beautiful story out of that. But oh boy, I think we both also have our roadblocks, our difficulties in life. You mentioned the cognitive skills, the competences, that's one part of the story. And the other thing is the social skills, your personal skills, for which you have to have kind of self awareness, but also social awareness. What do you think, Beverly, if you choose to go in a kind of branch where we need a benefit mindset? I think we need them in all aspects of life. But do you think it starts at home, in the primary family? And how many life skills are there taught or should be taught on a university like yours or in your lessons?
I do agree with you that a lot of the life skills that people get today actually should begin at home. In fact, there is absolutely nothing that can replace the molding of good, sound values, teaching your children how to be kind to others, teaching them to share, teaching your children what it means to look at your neighbor and help your neighbors. I think one of the most important things that I learned when I was growing up was the opportunity to be able to go to the neighbor's house with a meal, or some fruits or some carrots, something that my mother grew in her garden, and she wanted to share with the neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
When we went to church on Sundays, bring in stuff for others that we knew that did not have enough. So those skills are very important. I think we would have missed the opportunity not to teach those things at home to our children. Being kind. Can you teach kindness at university? At that age, I really think it's probably a little bit more difficult because people's, I would say, character is already formed, and essentially the mindset to care and to give is really coming back from the home, as you said. But in university, I think we can build on and we can change some things. I don't think we should give up. I think we can actually find ways to talk about these things, to plant the seeds to our young people about the idea that they actually need to look at life as a sharing, caring. In fact, in my classes, some of the very simple things I tell my students are, if one of your colleagues miss a class, why wouldn't you take the notes and share it with them? If they're sick, how many of you call to find out if one of your friends didn't show up for class? I always ask for the rest of the group if they're missing, and I would ask the ones that are present, do you know where your friends are? Do you know where your classmates are? So I try my best on a daily basis to instill that community. And I always say, it's not about competing. Obviously, you have got to do the exams, you've got to pass your exams, you need to study individually, but there is nothing better than studying in a group. I always say to my students, I think you learn a lot easier from your peers than you do from your professors. When you sit in class, you hear the
Mhm.
lecture notes or the discussions. It goes through one ear and comes through the other. But when you talk with your peers about what has been learned, there is no better way to learn. So yes, in fact, I think we can also to at least facilitate learning in that way, caring and sharing for each
Mhm.
other. The hospitality mindset, I would say.
And the hospitality mindset also means learning to read the room, because I think that is what we are doing. Reading the room, people come in, guests come in. We look very carefully what those people need. I also think it's very helpful to learn a lot of etiquettes, how to behave, how to have certain etiquettes at a dinner in a social setting, etc., etc. I think that's also a very helpful life skill. The fact learning to read the room, is that also something we get from our primary homes, or are there still things we can learn at university or in your classes?
What I would call that learning to read the room is what I call the sixth sense. That would be my take on it. It is something I think that you can actually develop over time. And in fact, I think it comes with being able to reflect on yourself, think seriously about what you're doing, to find quiet time, to find periods in your life or in your day when you can become mindful of the things around you. So that sixth sense, I think, really comes with experience, to be honest with you. And I think it can be learned over time. In fact, it's what I sometimes would call my own gut feeling. And reading the room is really about thinking critically about what is actually going on around you and being sensible and mindful and intelligent about the fact that there are things happening that we should not overlook. So yes, I think we can actually encourage, at least encourage those kinds of skills in the classroom also too.
To be aware of the, as I call it, the warm data that are within us. And yeah, you can only listen to them in quiet times. Yeah.
That's right.
Beverly, now we've spoken a lot of so many things that are, one could be very envy on your long list of studies, but maybe, I don't know if it's the case in your life, in my life it is, are there some professional mistakes that you would have liked to do without? Tell the truth,
Oh,
because
yes.
we
Oh, yeah.
talk about the
I
naked truth.
always tell the truth. As a matter of fact, that is one of my
I
basic
know.
principles. I have made several mistakes in my life. In fact, to be honest with you, I still believe that one of the things that I should have done at a very early age is to be a little bit more serious about what I actually wanted to do.
Hmm.
Hospitality was one thing. As I said, family would never have underscored that or supported that, but I did it anyway. But as I worked in the industry and I met people and I saw how others actually were able to display their own practice. I felt that one of the things that I should have done was to have studied engineering, for example. I love doing things with my hands, but can't do anything with my hands. I really am very bad at being able to do anything. And I remember meeting many engineers. I remember talking to engineers, and I was always fascinated how these people were able to design things and to do things and, fix boilers and fix a tank or fix electric power or to get things working again. I can't even repair my own dishwasher in my house, for God's sake. And so, I felt that if I had some exposure in those areas, I would actually be
Hmm.
on my way to one of the things that I would actually want to do. I also feel that
It
something,
sounds like you would like to pursue several professions.
several,
I'm
several.
sorry.
If I had the chance, I would be a lifelong learner, to be honest with you. I have to say that's something I truly enjoyed. As a child, I hated reading. I hated to do anything with books. But once I actually got into it, oh, you couldn't stop me. I just continued. It's almost as though I made up for those years that I missed out, just being lazy and not wanting to do anything. And so I would rather say that if I had a chance, I would have become an engineer. I would do medicine because of my opportunity to be able to help people. I would study psychology today. It's one of the things that I think is absolutely important. Pastoral care. It has been on my heart for the longest while.
Mm.
And that has come through just wanting to give people care and to be able to help people out there. And here I am as an educator. In a way, I am kind of doing a combination of all those careers that I would have pursued had I the opportunity. But in all honesty, I think perhaps, a study in which I could actually dig deeper into some of these things would be my absolute way to go. Perhaps I could write a thesis on all those subjects, for example. That would be good. Maybe I should write a
Mm-hmm.
book on all those topic areas. I don't know. Maybe one of those days.
Hmm.
What do you think? I don't
Ah,
know.
you should write a book, Beverly. All that, write all that wisdom down. But as we're both a little bit seasoned ladies, to do all those things you did, you lived in several places, you studied so much, you're working now, you're in the workforce for so long. There must be something or someone or several people that inspired you. Who lighted your candle again and again and again?
Amazing,
Or
amazing.
what?
Great question, great question. I would say, yes, indeed, I have lived in several parts of the world. I've lived in the Bahamas, I've lived in the United States, I've lived and studied in the UK, I've lived in the Netherlands. I worked in the Netherlands for over 7 years. I lived in Germany now for over 20 odd years, or have been connected to Germany at least 30 years. Indeed, I have lived in several places, but that candle, truly believe, was lit by a guidance counselor I had, Ansel Brown, when I was in
Mm.
school. At an age of about 11, 12 years old, essentially, when I was in my first grade of school. I think I went to school one day crying, actually. And he said to me, I need to talk to you. I think I was actually in the hallway. He saw me crying and he said, I would like to talk to you. I wondered why, and that sort of thing. I tried to wipe away my tears and ended up in his office, and we started talking. And I told him the story. I think at the time my parents were actually going through a divorce. So I was pretty sad about that. And when I went into his office, I told him the story. So he consoled me and, helped me to understand that that's issues that my parents need to work out. But I really should not focus so much on my parents' issues. They're adult enough that they can solve the problems themselves. But I need to focus on school and do the things that are necessary in order to actually get through school. I think that was where my life changed because he then gave me the opportunity to shine. We spoke on regular basis, but obviously I think he saw the talents I had or the natural things that I could do. And at a certain point, I was on the stage doing drama. And I remember one of the things that he actually had, he gave me a piece, he gave me a topic, and he said, write an essay about honesty is the best policy. And he gave me that topic, and I wrote an essay, and we had a drama piece out of that. From that, I became the head of every single club in the school. I was the president of the drama club. I was the president of the speech club. I was the president of the PE club. I did every and everything. In the end, I was the head girl. I don't know if that rings a bell with you. It's so what we would call the valedictorian in high school in Jamaica. I then became the valedictorian at my school. And so that was where the candle was lit to what I am today. I really have to say that was the one person that really impacted my life in a significant way. Today, Ansel is still
Does he
my,
know, Beverly?
I think he doesn't know
Does
enough.
he know? Did you ever tell him? Yeah,
I have,
isn't that because I reached out
yeah,
to one of my professors because he guided me in some way, and isn't this is such a beautiful story, Beverly. It shows the importance of one person in your life, in early
yes,
life, who
yes,
sees your sacred candle. I mean,
yes.
there are so many in my life. There were enough candle outblowers. Oh, your candle is lighting.
Mm,
Let's blow
mm.
it out. To
Yeah,
have these, I call it sacred people, but also does that important person, is he still alive? Does he know
he
that?
is. He is.
The
As a matter
importance
of
of the role
fact,
in your life?
yes, he is still alive. He does know. I think he needs to know more, hear that more often. Every time I
Hmm.
visit Jamaica, I try my best to see him. This past year, when I was there, we
Hmm.
desperately tried to connect. It did not happen. As a matter of fact, I am still trying to call. He does not answer his phone. I don't know why. But it is someone that remains in my heart. He is someone that I would travel the world to see, and someone that, if I can help him in any way, I certainly would. He is my hero. He is the person that I look up to, the person that when I think about him, I am truly, truly thankful that I met Ansel Brown.
So he made you, amongst others, write that piece. So, what would the title of your life book be until now? Is there something that you could call
That's a
the
trick
title of
question.
your life book could be? Yeah, I know.
I don't know. I think to be honest with
Try.
you, I would probably need several books to I would rather say, in all
Hmm.
honesty.
Hmm.
But if I had to write some of those books or one book with several chapters, perhaps Just Do It would be a title.
Yeah.
Lifelong
Hmm.
learning, learn as much as you can, keep learning, never stop learning. Make the mistake. Make the mistake, but do it early. Make the mistake and do it early. Another chapter could actually be, if you make a mistake, do not give up. Get up, stand up, and go on. And keep working on yourself. Those would be perhaps the chapters in a book that I would probably still need to find the title, to be honest with you.
Sounds also like very good wisdom to give to younger people.
I hope.
When wisdom we should have at a younger age, I think. In episode 2, we talked about our aspirations. But to have in our busy schedules all the aspirations we still have, a day just had 24 hours. So we told each other what's on our bucket list, but are there some things that you could write down on your bucket list? What do you want to unlearn, to undo, to have the time for the things you still want to do?
It is true. It is true that I do have some of those things that I would say, honestly, if I hadn't spent so much time thinking about them, I would be much better off. If I were to pin down one important thing, It would be the way I actually allowed people to kind of guide what I do, how I behave. And for a long time, I was really, really very much one of those persons that I don't like to rock the boat. I don't like to rock the boat. And so I like to be agreeable. And so what I would do is basically allow people to sort of live my life for me, or I would live my life through others, in that whatever they said, I would pretty much follow on or try to mold my attitudes and my behavior to suit others. That I think that I truly think I would certainly change today. I don't care what people say. I am just going to do my own thing. And sometimes you really have to find that self confidence to be able to go out there and shine. I wish I could was able to shine a lot more. In a strange way, I often feel that it's because of what I think people think about me, why I still have not been so successful as I should be. I think that there I still have a lot of potential. Had
Hmm.
I the opportunity to be able to go out there and just do my thing. I think you asked a question some time ago whether or not I thought that I was actually raised to be autonomous and or r- raised to be a kind of a what I would probably say a
Loyal.
pleaser or to be loyal. I would rather say that I'm too loyal. I would rather say that I'm too
Hmm.
loyal. And because of this loyalty, I feel that I have not really blossomed as I should sometimes.
But Beverly, isn't it that we have a lack of role models? I mean, we come from an age. I don't know if your grandparents or your grandmother had a career or your great grandmother. I mean, we are kind of the first-ish women who combined a real high career with family. I think, speaking for myself, I think I had a lack of role models.
It is indeed true. I am the first person in my family to earn a PhD. I am not the first person
Mhm.
to have gone to college. My older sisters obviously went to college, pursued their education. They became nurses. My sister, a teacher, she had several careers in her life. But my mother was a stay-at-home mom. As a matter of fact, I dedicated my PhD to my mother, who I say that she was an absolutely fantastic woman. She knew how to sew, she could make the best meal for her kids out of nothing necessarily. She taught us the value of a faith, having a faith. Taught us
Mhm.
or role modeled the importance of friendships, but she also taught us
Mhm.
the and role modeled loyalty. But my mother was not an intellectual woman. As a matter of fact, today, when I
Mhm.
think of her, she's ill, she has Alzheimer's, and I often look at my mother as someone that spent so much time giving to people that she had absolutely no time to take care of herself. And yes, you're right. I, for example, that had a family, went to school, work. I mean, I have never worked part time. I've always had a full time job. And I can tell you stories of having to hire someone to take care of my daughter, someone to take care of the home because I am busy at work. I had to make the mistakes there and I had to do it for myself. So you're right, there were no role models at all there. Hopefully I can actually role model that for my students and the younger generation that probably, know, will have to do something like that. And I would say to the younger generation, just
Mhm.
do it. And it is possible. It is indeed possible, to say the
Mhm.
least.
And is there a kind of a legacy you would like to leave behind? I mean, it's a big question, but is there something you can say that's a legacy I want to leave behind, being a good ancestor?
It is truly a very big question because sometimes I think that there are so many things I would like to do. I think one most important thing I would want to leave behind is really my life story. I'd like to live a life that when people remember
Mm-hmm.
me, they can remember me in a very positive way. Someone that is kind, someone that was always out there helping people, someone that understood the value of friendship, understanding how to share. I truly believe that the one thing that I'd want to do is to be able to change the present generation that will be taking over after you and I have
Mm.
retired and have decided to, take a back seat. I would say to these young people, listen, I believe in you. I trust you. You have got this. You're smart. Beautiful. You know how to do things, and you can make this planet a great place. You've got to change the things that we did incorrectly, I would say. We did a lot of sort of messy
Mm.
stuff, I would say. So I would say to these young people, stop competing. You don't need to compete. There are enough resources out there that enough for each of you. There are phenomenal opportunities out there. Explore the world. Don't forget, life is tough. Life is tough, but together you all can solve it. You've got to do it together. The problems of the world, the health issues that we all have, emotional loneliness, physical stuff, you have got to actually do this together, because you can't be pointing finger at the person here or that race or that culture. You have to see that you're responsible for each other. So adopt a child, adopt a tree, adopt an animal if you don't have any of your own. Build communities and create positiveness, positivity wherever you go. That's what you need to do. Create positivity, and most of all, take care of yourselves. The generation today needs to hear that. They need to be able to and be facilitated to do this all the time, that they can actually change the world. They
Mm.
have what it takes to change the world.
Oh, that's beautifully said, Beverly, and so true and so important. And maybe we're coming a little bit, unfortunately, to the end of our conversation. Can you leave us with the thing that fills you with the most hope when you think about the future generations and the future world of work?
I am absolutely amazed at the youths of today. I was in the train a couple days ago, and I happened to be in one of those wagon where a group of people came in at one of the stops on the train to Berlin. And I fell asleep really quickly because I knew this was going to be a rowdy group of kids in the train that is probably going to make my trip a little bit less comfortable. So I fell asleep. And in fact, they came in and shortly they all fell asleep. But about 2 hours before the journey ended, it's almost felt as though we woke up at the same time. And immediately I started to think, should I start a conversation? Should I say something or whatever? Because I was amazed at the actual makeup of the group. I noticed that they were all from different cultures. There were people who were of African background. There were people who were Anglo. There were people who were Asian. I found it a very unusual makeup of the group. There were about 15 of them. And before you knew it, one of the guys stood up and started talking to me. They started the conversation. I imagine that the age group was 21 to maybe 11. That's a range of ages. And then we got into a conversation and they started telling me what they were doing. They were actually on their way to Berlin to talk about the way in which they see their lives playing out in the future. They wanted to go to Berlin
Mm.
to talk about living together in one world, people helping each other, that cultures can actually work together. One of the girls that I got into talk to, she was partially Tunisian, African, Turkey, a mixture like that you don't find all the time. Some of the people were from Congo, a mixture of Congolese and Jamaican. Then there were others who were Asians coming from Southeast Asia, but also we had some Chinese and Japanese, a mixture. It was almost as though whoever put together the group looked for the most unusual mixtures of people that you could actually find, put them together, and created an opportunity for them to go on stage to talk about their own future and their children's future. And I was amazed. I was absolutely amazed with that because I knew and was very much hopeful that that is what the world is actually going to see in the next couple of years. That I really have to say that I feel hopeful that we are in good hands. In fact, when I spoke to one of the guys, he's actually at the moment spending a year at the German Minister of Labor. Another one was actually spending a year in the Bundeswehr. He was spending some time working for the Ministry of Defense, a social year. And then when I said to him, "Well, what do you want to study?" The guy has done his A levels and did exceptionally well in his A levels. I said, "Are you going to study medicine?" He said, "No. I would love to do something that has to do with social work because I love working with young people." He said, "I love working with young people." He wanted to talk to youths about an opportunity to be able to be good citizens in the world. I was amazed. I was amazed. At that age, I was not thinking about helping people. I was not thinking about wanting to help young people to actually be better at what they do. And this young man has already sorted and thought about his life, and he knows exactly where he wants to make a contribution. I am just absolutely sure that we are in good hands.
And I share that thought with you.
Yes.
And we're in good hands, and it's up to us to hold space for that generation to make it possible that they can flourish and they can light their candle and there are not too much candle blowouters surrounding them. And I think that is also one of the tasks we have. Beverly, that was a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing all of your thoughts, your wisdom, for sharing your story. And all the listeners out there, thank you for listening. Have a good week, you all. And, be kind because the world needs a service mindset.
Thank you for having me. That is the naked truth, indeed. Thank you so much.
Bye.